double check it's recording from the right channel. Sometimes I forget to change that. Yep, it is. All right. Okay, so this is the actual program. The program is written in this particular manner. It's kind of like drag and drop. Okay, you just drag a block. I'll show you, the blocks that we have already introduced in this class. If you go to the control, I call it a drawer. The control drawer. You can see it has stuff that we have already talked about. If else is a conditional statement. It also has a loop. Let's see here. The loop is, yeah, it has a while loop. While do. So it even uses the same kind of terminology that we use in this class. A pre-checking loop is called a while loop. It doesn't have a post-checking loop. So if you want to do a post-checking loop, you have to kind of emulate the effect of a post-checking loop using a pre-checking loop. So that's basically the application. It's actually kind of big, because if you look at the map here, what you're seeing on screen is really just a very tiny portion. You can control the zoom ratio. You can actually zoom it all the way out. It's not you won't be able to read anything, but you can at least see the complexity or the scale of this existing program. The way it does it is, this program, what you see on the screen here, is an Android app. Okay, it's an Android application that runs on cell phones, that runs the Android operating system, or tablets that run the Android operating system. And the way it works is, this is a Lego Mindstorms. For those of you who know it, it's the NXT version, which is the second attempt from Legos to make a robot kit. The first one was not very successful. The second one was very successful. And then the third one is now released, but it's not yet as popular as the second generation. And that's why you have to pay more to get the second generation than the third generation. The third generation is actually about $350, brand new. And the second generation, if you find one brand new, it's going to be more than $400 or more. Okay, which is kind of funny because it's older technology, but because people have used it so much, they know all the ins and outs. They know how to hack it. Yep.
How much was when it first came out?
It was about $200 to $250 when it first came out, and that was years ago. Okay, so this is on, and I'm going to run my app on my phone. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard for you guys to see it. Can I borrow your desk here? Okay, so I'm going to just put it here, make sure it doesn't fall, and I'm going to run my app. Let's see, it's called Squared. There you go. And the first thing I do is to pair up the Bluetooth connection, because the NXT module here is Bluetooth enabled. So it would actually communicate with any Bluetooth devices, and this one is already paired. And so right now it doesn't do a whole lot. It's not very intelligent. So I'm asking it to scan right now. It's using the ultrasound sensor on the top to basically act as a radar. Okay, so it's trying to find range information around it, and I can tell it when to stop. So I can click another button here to stop it. And I can review the data. I know you guys cannot see it, but it's basically a whole list of numbers corresponding to the position of the wheels, and also the range information coming back from the ultrasound sensor. Now, I have no way to tell whether it has finished one complete revolution, because it doesn't have any direction sensor. It doesn't have a compass on it. Okay, so it becomes very difficult for me to find out whether it has finished one revolution and when it starts the next revolution. But that's okay, because I can still, kind of plot. You cannot see it, but I can plot the range information kind of as vertical lines. Now, ideally speaking, if I can get the actual, angle, information, I can plot it out like a real radar screen. Okay, then I can just turn this robot, with this app into a small radar. And the intention is, I would do this, at Korea GPS, so it will basically be continuously scanning for people, who stop by the booth. And when it does find out somebody is stopping by, it will do certain things, like it will just go back and forth, or it will blink a light or something like that to tell the person, hey, I see you. What do you want to know about CIS or ARC or whatever, right? So it's incomplete as it is, but I have figured out most of the blocks, building blocks that I need in order to finish the actual app. The problem that I had, that it doesn't have a way to know, whether it has finished one full revolution. It can be fixed because I can just put a post at a certain known location. So the distance between the robot and the post is always, a certain range. So I can use that as a homing, signal and say, okay, when you get past this, this is the starting point or the end of one revolution. So that way I can synchronize the actual, angle information and know, how to integrate multiple revolutions into one. Yep, so that's the little app that I have written for this device. The best thing out of this, that I think is related to this class, is anyone who have completed this class probably would be able to program using this kind of interface. If I just kind of zoom in, all the way to, at least to the point where you can see something. Let me go to a part where it actually has some logic. This one is not bad, okay? Considering all the things that we have talked about in this class. So this is basically an event handler. It says when the list picker is activated and something is picked, it will run this code. Okay, it's called an event handler, and you can see that it has two conditional statements. One is inside the other one. So we have one conditional statement here that is inside the other conditional statement, and everything is just drag and drop. There's no syntax that you have to learn in this particular programming interface. It's free from MIT. So if you go to App Inventor, one word, .mit.edu, you just need to have one Google account to log in, to sign in, and your school account, okay, W7-digit at apps.losreals.edu is a Google account. You can use that to start your app development. And most of you already know that with Android apps, you don't need to pay $100 per year to be a developer, and you don't even need to send your app to the App Store to distribute to other people or even to run it yourself on your own machine. All you have to do is to distribute the APK file and have the cell phone to turn on and say it will accept APK files from any source, and then you can just run your app. So it's a little demonstration. Some of you may be interested, because you just want to do something like that. And this is the option here. You can click it, and it will say you can either show barcode, which is kind of cool because what happens is it will show the barcode of the app, and then you point your phone to the barcode. It's a QR code. It will go to the link and download the APK file. And if your phone is configured correctly, it will actually go ahead and install the app through the QR code. So it's kind of nice. And you can also show other people the same QR code, so they all can basically install the app if they agree to run the app from an untrusted source, basically. So are there any questions about this? Yep, go ahead.
Can you make that search for Bluetooth signals? So at your event, if someone has their Bluetooth on, it could text their phone?
No, because it's not in discovery mode. In other words, until I turn on this device to be visible from other Bluetooth devices, they can't really find it. Yeah. I suppose there are ways to hack the Bluetooth signal and actually find it, but not without hacking it first.
They get a text message like, "Come over to this booth."
They can hijack it, right? They can hijack my robot, turn it into a killer bot. Well, talking about which. Okay, you guys are starting me on a complete sidetrack now. So the Navy has just tested their X-47B drone, and one of my colleagues sent me a lot of pictures of this particular Navy drone. It's 44,000 pounds. I suppose it's not a particularly big airplane because some airplanes are much bigger and heavier than that. Let me see if I can find you a close-up picture. Maybe not this. Maybe go to images. Yeah, there we go. So that's basically it's a jet. It's a drone. It's capable of carrying 4,400 pounds of payload. That's two Miatas, two first-generation Miatas. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of weight. Okay, if you think about it, okay, it's like carrying two little cars on its wings. It has stealth design. You can see the shape of this. It's very unconventional, and it is a drone. It doesn't have any pilot, nor anything to support a pilot inside an airplane. According to my colleague, in any type of modern fighter planes, about 30% of the airplane's weight is for pilot support. Okay, the canopy, the ejector seat, the dashboard, and all the other control stuff. About 30% of the weight of the airplane is dedicated for. Yep, is it big?
Control is huge.
Is huge.
Yeah.
And there's none wasted on this plane.
That's right.
Okay, absolutely zero. Okay.
Sharper turns.
Also, it can throw any turn. It can do a negative G because a normal pilot can only withstand what, about 1 negative G, and then they start to red out.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why when you see airplanes, that need to descend really quickly, they always have to roll first and then turn the negative G into positive G, and then they make a quick descent, and then they have to roll again to level the flight. With this, they can do anything they want. It's like. No problem. Yeah, a 20G turn, as long as the hardware can deal with it, no problem. There's no blackout issue at all. Okay, if it is in trouble, you're not gonna have. You don't have to send a note to the next of kin. Okay, you just order another one. Okay, the only thing you have to do is to do a self-destruction so that the other side cannot salvage the parts and figure out how it works.
And they probably have that in there.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. They definitely have some kind of. They probably have multiple levels of self-destruction. So not only is it an explosion to destroy the airplane itself mechanically, but all the boards will probably self-erase first, and then it will fry the board, using a big current, and then the whole plane would explode. So probably in succession, it would do, all kinds of destruction to itself. But I think the best thing we can do is actually to leave behind, the wrong information. Oh, here's the software control system. Just copy and paste it. It will work. It will work. I guarantee it. But don't call me if it doesn't, right? It doesn't come with any type of warranties. Just like open source licenses. Okay, this product is available for free, but without any type of warranties. So it's kind of interesting. It took off from a carrier. Okay, this thing took off from a carrier. It took 2 passes back to the carrier, but I think it did not land on the carrier because that's actually a pretty difficult thing to do. So I think they were not confident enough to do it. But think about all the software on this thing, okay? If you read the news report about this thing, this is not designed to be remotely piloted. This is not your typical Predator where you have someone in Arizona, I think, or or Nevada, in a control center, actually piloting the plane. This thing was built from day one to be autonomous. Okay, you need someone to set an objective. That's it, high-level objective, like blow up that building, okay? And the rest is autonomous. This thing will fly by itself. It will possibly evade,
Right, defend itself.
Possibly defend, itself. Try to, evade, enemy fire if there's any, in order to accomplish the objective.
If they needed to, could they control it?
I suppose. I mean, that control system has to be there, but I think humans cannot control it as responsively as the computer can that's on board the plane itself. Yep. Yep, go ahead.
I was just curious if you know or have any idea why, because I know the Predator stuff where they had some piloting remotely is relatively new in the last decade or so, but why are they moving to fully autonomous stuff?
Because then you cannot have even pilot errors. And there's no way for people to hijack it either. Because when it's in a mission, it can maintain complete radio silence. It can be completely independent of anything. I mean, you can have a nuke striking the control center. This thing will keep going, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
They're also we can't find people to pilot it because it's too boring. People don't want to sit there and control it. That was part of it. They did a study, and that's the least favorite job. They can't get somebody to sit there and
That's like a video game. That's like more like
it's part of it's because they want officers to do that, and they can get
Right.
better job, and there's no like upgrade. Like it's like you're stuck in that job forever.
Yep. Well, I'll address that a little bit later.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
Now, you brought up the elimination of human error and all that stuff. Now, what about like that movie Stealth?
Which
Oh,
movie?
Jesus.
Stealth.
It was a full
Very
autonomous
bad.
attack plane, and it had a mission, and it was going to carry out that mission regardless of what.
Oh yeah,
it said.
that they will do. You don't even have to look that far into like recent movies. If anyone wants to know what happens when the computer is fully autonomous and is intelligent and will do whatever it takes to complete the objectives, the first movie that has that is called 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Okay, HAL 9000, was given two conflicting objectives. Objective number one: get the astronauts safely to Jupiter orbit. Okay, I can do that. Objective number two: don't tell anyone about the objective of this mission. And then you figure out, hey, how come the two pilots, that are still awake, that are not in cryo, how come they know about this objective? Well, because they need to know about the objective to get there, right? So it was trying to eliminate the two astronauts that were, actually walking around. Took care of one by flinging him into outer space, when he was outside repairing the antenna. And then the other one got smart and tried to come back and disable the computer. But the computer was only doing what it was supposed to do. It was conflicting. Protect these people, but don't let them know about the mission. What if they know about the mission? Uh-oh, nobody told me what I'm supposed to do. Okay, I think I have to make a decision here. Okay. Yep. Yep, so that's where things are going. And if you think about this, it's not the mechanical parts. I'm pretty sure the mechanical parts and the design of the airplane is very high tech and top notch too. But the software is ultimately what's going to decide the effectiveness or the ineffectiveness or the potential danger of having something like this. Okay? Because if you think about it, even if we have the best manned airplane, yes, there can be pilot errors, okay? There can be friendly fire, and there can be people, pilots, defecting to whatever side they want to defect to. Can all of them defect at the same time? Yes. Is it likely? Very, very unlikely, okay? But if these things, let's say you have a fleet of only 50 of these things, okay? If they run the same software system, the same operating system, the same firmware, the same AI, and the same everything, all it takes is one hack. One successful hack will get to all 50 drones, and they can all turn around at the same time. Okay? So that really is the potential danger of something like this when they are not remotely controlled and they can shut off completely and not communicate and finish their objective, because it only takes one hacker or one hacker organization to hack the system, because they are all running the same system, right? And then they can all turn around. And that will be like big problems then. So, that's where we are at this point. Yep.
You know anything about the power plant?
The power plant?
Yeah.
It's probably a jet. The intake is here. Okay, if you look at it, the intake is actually up here, and then the exhaust is in the back. I don't know about the actual numbers. In order to facilitate the stealth design, they're not as efficient as a more conventional jet engine, because they have to hide the heat signature, and also the profile of the airplane also doesn't lend itself to an efficient jet engine, which is basically just a pipe, right? But this is definitely not shaped like a pipe. Yep. All right. So that's kind of where things are going, and if you think about how this class may be related to stuff like that, I think it is really related. I mean, it would not have been possible without computers, and more specifically, without sophisticated software. That would not have been possible.
A lot of that came from video games, didn't it?
Say again?
A lot of that came from video games, didn't it?
You mean the AI portion, or?
Just the hardware, a lot of the software stuff. Well, the drive to get better graphics.
Graphics.
Computers wouldn't be at the level they are now without advanced gaming. It's something I've heard within the last.
I don't know about that. Gaming drives, a particular aspect of personal computing, particularly the graphics processor unit, the GPU.
Yeah.
Yes, it does drive the commodity level of, packing more processing power. But when it comes to that sort of, thing, it doesn't run the same type of processor that we know. I mean, those things probably run something that is hardened, so it cannot be jammed easily and is resistant to nuclear blasts. Because nuclear blasts send off a lot of EMI, electromagnetic interference wave, and it can fry electronics without killing people. I mean, the reach of the EMI can be further than the radiation itself. And that's how some technical nukes are designed to do. They're not designed to kill or destroy things. They're designed to eliminate or disable electronic devices. So these things are probably all designed to counteract that sort of thing. Right. So are there any questions about drones and stuff like that? I cannot answer any one of those questions anyway. Even if I could, I cannot, right? I mean, not. In fact, if they want to improve national security, they should encourage me to talk about that kind of technology. Then whatever country is trying to learn about the technology will watch my video and try to learn about the drone and stealth technology from me. I think that will help secure our national security.
Don't know enough about it.
But I'll pretend that I do, right?
Right.
So all the other countries will flying trash cans, saying, "Look at my stealth airplane here." Yeah, that looks like a flying trash can. But it's stealthy. It doesn't smell either. Good.
Professor, I kind of have an elementary question just about navigation and the website.
Yep.
Can you go ahead and click on pre and post conditions?
Pre and post conditions, yes.
Just as I was, and it's happened ever since the class started. So you have 3 options. We only have 2. I can't
You only
remember
have
exactly
2?
Which one?
Depends on which one.
Depends, because I have 3.
2, and I have no way to return back to our original home.
Okay, 2 ways to do it.
topics.
One is right-click and say, open link in new tab.
Okay.
So that way you don't get out of the Moodle page at all. The second
That's
one.
what it's doing. It's essentially removing the Moodle page and just going to the cell or the topic cell, and I'm only allowed to navigate between there. So if I want to go back up to another topic and check out nested statements while I'm looking at pre and post, or it kind of like I'll have to close it or I'll have to open another window. I don't know. It's pretty elementary.
It's just right click,
So just
open a new tab, and then in the new tab, it has a link to it. You just click the link itself.
Okay.
If you have multiple links, they're really going to the same document. So it doesn't matter which link you go to. They may look slightly different because they are rendered, slightly differently, but they still have the same content.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So, any other questions before I talk about, pick up from last time? Remember, we were trying to prove the algorithm to find the maximum of 2 variables to be correct? Sort of? Nobody remember anything of that?
Yeah, that was the x gets k while x is less than m, do that whole thing?
Yeah.
Or did I miss part of the writing down stuff?
Okay, so
Yeah, we're finishing.
we were finishing.
We got
You
to-
approved it and you submitted it last night, didn't you?
Well, I turned in something, but that's a
Yeah.
conditional statement. So let's go back to. Okay, let me just recheck how much I did last time.
No, I'm pretty,
Yeah, I've got post 5.
That's okay. I can.
X greater than y, z equals x, or x less than. or equal
That's
to
why we
y.
have the recording, right?
Z.
So I don't have to remember exactly where we left off. Okay, so that's the loop here. Let me see if I finished the whole thing. Okay, so that's the whole loopy thing. All right, so let's just pause right there. And okay, so last time we figured out what the post condition of line 3 is supposed to be. Remember? And then I plug it back in, and everything worked. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's just pick up from over there, and then we'll continue with that today. I don't think roll sheet. Yep.
Professor?
Mm-hmm.
Roll sheet.
Okay, thank you. All right, so there's one person with a red star on it. That means that person has 2 absences up to this point already, but because that person still had active participation online, I'm not dropping yet. But one more absence, it'll be gone. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue with this part here. Okay, so last time, I had a suspicion. I suspected the post 3 is a certain thing, and the question is, if I plug it back in, will it all work out? That was the big question, and it did work out. Did we finish the post condition of the entire thing last time? Nope. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with that today. All right. So I'll just go ahead and copy, from my own notes here. And of course, because that's a video, I cannot just do a regular copy and paste. I didn't save the document, but that's okay. It's quick enough to do it here. Okay, so the big question is, can we get, pre-3 and post-3 to be consistent? Okay, pre-3 is x is less than m, and x equals k, and k is less than or equal to m, close, or x is less than or equal to m, close. Okay. Let me just put it over here. This is my assumption. This is my suspicion. I'm assuming and say, okay, I think post 3 is just x is less than or equal to m. Okay, that was my suspicion. And I'm plugging it back into pre-3 just so that I can see whether it is okay, whether it's working out or not. That was where we left off last time we met on Thursday. So we'll go ahead and try to finish this part here. Okay. X is less than m is always going to be there, because otherwise we would not be about to execute line 3. Because if you look at the pseudocode, line 3 is right here. Okay, we would not be executing line 3 unless x is actually less than m, because that's how we can get into the loop itself. Okay. All right, so we have something to simplify at this point. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this thing here. Can I simplify this a little bit? That's not much I can simplify, over there. But if you look at the entire thing, is there anything I can simplify if you look at this entire expression?
X is less than or equal to m.
I think I missed one paren here. Here we go. X is less than or equal to m. Exactly. So this whole thing simplifies to x is less than or equal to m. Okay, how can I look at this expression and simplify the whole thing to just x is less than or equal to m? Well, let's take a look at these two separately. Let's look at each component of the or individually. If you look at this, how big is this on the number line? How many dots does it take up on the number line? Or does it take up like a range on the number line? I'm looking at x here. How many x will fit this description? X equals to k, and k is less than or equal to m. It's one single dot. Okay, so keep that in mind first. Where is that dot? Would this part here include that dot? If I just say, oh, find all the x that are less than or equal to m, would that include the dot when x equals to k? It would, okay, because I explicitly stated that k is less than or equal to m. So that means if you look at the entire expression, you look at the left-hand side, this part here is specifying a single dot. This part here is specifying a portion of the line, okay, that includes the single dot. But I have an or here, which means I want the more general version of the two. Which version is more general? X is less than or equal to m. So that's why this entire thing is simplified to x is less than or equal to m. Is there anything I can do to the conjunction itself to simplify it? One side says x is less than m, the other side says x is less than or equal to m. X is less than m is the more restrictive one, and because this is a conjunction, we take the more restrictive one. Okay? So in this case, it just simplifies to x is less than m. Okay, well, it works out okay. I mean, now pre-3 is a certain thing. The question now is, knowing that is my precondition of line 3, is it consistent with the post condition of x is less than or equal to m?
Yeah.
Now, what if I tell you ahead of time that x has to be an integer? Okay, let's take a look at line 3 again. Okay, what does line 3 say? Line 3 is x gets x plus 1. If I tell you ahead of time that x is an integer, would this pre-3 and this post-3 be consistent?
No.
Yeah.
It would be? Okay. Okay, if you think it is not consistent, you can find me a counterexample and say, well, if x has this value, then the statement x gets x plus 1 would not produce a post condition that is consistent with the precondition. But there's no.
Okay, so let's say m is 3 and x is 2.
Okay,
Or no.
m is 3, x is 2
And then it'd be
before the
equal.
statement.
Yeah. And then it'd be
Okay.
equal.
So 3
Oh,
is
no,
less than
there's
2, that is true. You add 1 to it, it becomes 3. 3 is less than or equal to 3, it's still true.
Still true.
Still true.
Yeah, and true would always be true.
Yep. It has to do with the fact that it is an integer. If I didn't tell you it's an integer, then yes, you would be able to find counter examples. But if x has to be an integer, this is actually true. It is consistent. Okay? Is everybody okay with that concept? If I tell you that x is an integer? Okay, if you look at the number line, okay, this is a number line here, and I just picked this spot here to be m, okay? The first condition, the precondition of line 3 is saying x is less than m. So that means, if I look at these integer values, x can be here or anything to the left-hand side. Is that okay? That's, x is less than m. Yep.
You're only talking about integers, right?
Only integers. So I only care about the individual dots here, okay? The second condition, post 3, is saying x is less than or equal to m. This is m, so the second condition is saying x can be anywhere from here or backwards. But that's right, because if x was here, then the next thing we know is going to be here because we are just adding 1 to x. And it will work for all of the other dots, because if it was here, it will get to here. If it was here, it will get to here. If it was here, it will get to here. So that's why this is actually working out just fine. It is consistent. Are we? Yep. Go ahead.
But only if it's less than m. If x is equal to m, then the line 3 makes it false.
But it won't be about to execute line 3 if it was equal to 3 to begin with, equal to m already.
Line 3 tells us that it's equal to m.
No, line 3 is, okay, the effect of line 3 is to add 1 to x. The precondition is telling you that x has to be less than m in order for me to even execute line 3. The post condition is saying after we execute line 3, x will be less than or equal to m. But that all makes sense because because x is an integer, so if it was m minus 1 before, which is the largest value less than m itself, then it will become m, and it's still less than or equal to m, which fits the post condition. Okay? So now that we know all this stuff here, we can try to get to the post condition of the entire statement, which is post 4. Post 4 looks a lot like this, with only one exception. So I'm just going to copy and paste it here. The only thing that's different about line 4 is x is less than m has to be negated. That part has to be negated because otherwise we would not be getting out of the loop. Is that making any sense? So if I go back to the video or the screenshot out of the video, let's get to, this is line 4 here. This is after we get out of the loop. And if you look at post 4 here, it is post 1 or post 3, but you also need to have your x is greater than or equal to m here, which is basically what we have at this point. X is not less than m. So we'll go ahead and rewrite this in a way that we understand. So we will just take out the negation, and then we change the comparison from less than to greater than or equal to. And then the other side, we already know what it is, right? Because the other side is exactly the same as before. This entire thing was just copied over here. So now we have this expression here, x is less than or equal to m, and x is greater than or equal to m. Can that be simplified?
Yeah.
X is equal to m.
Yep, it all simplifies to just x equals m, and that's the conclusion. Okay, the post condition of that loop is x becomes m. Okay, any questions about this? Questions? Yep, go ahead. Yeah, that's the final conclusion. When you get out of the loop, we know one thing for sure: x has the same value as m. But that's based on the precondition. The precondition is k is less than m to begin with, or less than or equal to m to begin with. But with that assumption, we know that x will become m after it exits the loop. Yep.
Is there any comment after post 4 x is equal to m? Is there any comment that we need to put?
No. This is just pre and post condition. So once we get to the post condition, we are done. All right. So are there any questions about this particular example? No questions. Okay. Have I introduced the concept of inverse functions in this class? Okay. Well, let's not even go to the inverse function yet, because that's a lot of mechanical stuff. It's really just how we get something done. I want to illustrate why we're getting something like this done. Okay, so we'll go back to an example that we have seen many times already. Okay, finding the maximum of 2 variables. Okay. I'm hoping most of you still remember this code here, because we have actually gone through this code several times already in this class. All right. Remember, I claimed that this code, this pseudocode, will find the maximum of 2 variables x and y, and make z the maximum of the 2. Remember, we talked about that in this class? Okay. And we tested this code too. We tested this code with test cases. Okay. I say, okay, let's assume x starts with is this value, y is this value. Go trace this code. Okay, z is this value. Is that the maximum of the 2? Yes. Okay, and then we throw another test case at it, and it worked out too. And then we can test another test case, and it worked out. Okay. The question now is it possible for me to throw another test case and it shows that this code is incorrect? It's possible. Okay, it is entirely possible. Remember the green circle and the red dots? Okay, if I did not know that this algorithm is correct to begin with, I can throw dots all day long, but there's no guarantee that the next dot will land on a red dot to tell me that the algorithm is incorrect. Okay, I can keep on throwing dots, and by luck, all the dots can land on the green area, and then I have no indication that the algorithm is incorrect. In other words, because an algorithm works for all test cases that you throw at it, is not enough to prove the algorithm is correct for all cases. Okay, is that okay? Now, if you want to prove that an algorithm is incorrect, all you need is one example where the algorithm does not work out, then you can say the algorithm is incorrect. All right. So what we want to do is to say, but is there a way to prove this algorithm is in fact correct? So we don't even have to throw any test cases at it at all. Okay, so we'll give it a try here. We'll start with line 1. Okay, the precondition of line 1 is true. Okay, I'm not going to make any assumptions about variables x, y, or z. Okay, is that okay? Is everybody comfortable with the notion that the precondition is just true itself? which basically means I don't know anything about the variables. Then we can move on to the precondition of line 2. There's no post 1 because post 1 can go to 2 places, so that's why I don't want to talk about post 1. I just talk about pre 2 and pre 4 in this case. Pre 2, because of the structure of the conditional statement, is pre 1 and the condition of the conditional statement. This is because of the structure of the conditional statement. It is true for all conditional statements. In this particular case, we know pre 1 is just true, so we put true here. And then we can also simplify this to just x is greater than y because true and anything is anything. I think we talked about that also. Okay, the identity of conjunction. Okay, so that's something that we already know. So let's work on pre 4, which is about the same thing. Pre 1 still has to be true because I don't have a chance to change anything yet. And in this case, it will be the negation of that. So x is less than or equal to y in this case because the condition has to be false for me to get to the else branch. Okay, is that okay so far?
Yes.
Or if I do not jump a step, it would just be this, because otherwise we would not be going to the else branch. Okay. And then we can expand pre 1 to just that, and then the other side is just x is less than or equal to y, because it is not the case that x is greater than y. It's the same thing as saying x is less than y or x equals y. And then because true is the identity of conjunction, we can simplify this whole thing to just x is less than or equal to y. Okay, knowing that this is the pre 2 and the pre 4, post 2 is fairly simple because post 2 is going to say, well, did we know anything about z before this statement that we have to get rid of? No, we didn't know anything about z to begin with, so we can just keep what we know about x and y. But on top of that, we can also now claim that say, oh, z is now the same as x because of the assignment statement. Is that okay? Because the effect of this assignment statement is to make z having the same value as x. And that's why I can add this fact here and say after we execute line 2, not only do we know x is greater than y, but we also know that z equals to x. Post 4, using the same kind of reasoning, we can say x is less than or equal to y still has to be true because line 4 does not change x or y. But on top of that, we also know that z has the same value as y because that's the effect of the assignment statement. Are we still doing okay so far? Yep, go ahead.
Why would you not be able to simplify post 2 and post 4 into c is greater than y, or c is
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can imply that. Yeah, you can imply that. But I'm just working with just the most basic stuff at this point. Okay, so we can derive other things. We can use it to imply that certain other things has to be true as well. So we'll get to that part. Okay, now we get to post 5. Now because this is a conditional statement, by the time I'm at the end of a conditional statement, I would not know which way I came from because I should not really care which way I came from. So that means, the post condition at line 5 is post 2 or post 4 because I could have come from either side. And if I just expand that one time, I would get whatever is in post 2, copy it to the left-hand side of the conjunction. Whatever is in post 4, copy and paste it into the right-hand side of the disjunction in this case, and I'm all done. So this is post 5, which is a condition that has to be true when I get through this algorithm, regardless of the initial values of x, y, and z. This has to be true. Are we doing okay so far with the concept that this is a post condition? It means this has to be true after this entire conditional statement is done. Are we doing okay? Concept-wise. Okay. The next question that we have is, well, is that really saying that z is the maximum of x and y? We don't know. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is to say, how do we express this? How do we express that z is the maximum of x and y, but only using comparison operators and the logical operators like and, or, and not that we have talked about? Okay, that's what we want to do. Okay, so I think last time we took a jab at this. We said, well, maybe we can say, that, z is greater than or equal to x, and z is greater than or equal to y. Doesn't that make z the maximum of x and y? No, it does not. Okay, because I can give you one example that makes this not work. Because I can pick x to be 1, pick y to be 2, and then z can be anything like 2, 3, 4, 5, and up. It will all satisfy this requirement. But 5 is not the maximum of 1 and 2, right? So what am I missing here? The maximum has to be the same as one of the numbers that was given to me. Is that making any sense? It has to be equal to at least one of the numbers that was given to me. I can state that. I mean, that's not easy, that's not difficult to state, because in this case I only have two variables, so I can say z has to equal to x or z has to equal to y. Pick one. Sometimes it can be both, because if x and y are the same, then it can be both. Both can be true at the same time. So this is how we express, z is the maximum of x and y. Okay, so this states that z is the maximum of x and y. Are we doing okay at this point? So on one hand, using just the logic, we come to the conclusion that at line 5, I know for sure that this entire expression, x is greater than y and z equals x, the whole thing as one side, or x is less than or equal to y and z equals y as the other side of the disjunction, the entire disjunction has to be true. On one hand, that is derived because of the structure of the code. On the other hand, we define, z is the maximum of x and y to be this little expression here. Okay. The question now is, but how about the algorithm? Is it right? Is it correct? In other words, the question is this expression here implying this? That's the question. Because if it does, that means my algorithm is doing what it is supposed to. On the other hand, if it does not imply, that means it is not doing what it is supposed to. There will be cases where it does not work. Okay? Are there any questions at this point?
Can you repeat that last comparison?
Absolutely. Because I still remember in this case. Most of the time I say something, when it's out of my mouth, I would not have any recollection of what I just said. Okay, in this case, I can still remember, so let me just repeat it again. On one hand, using the analysis of the algorithm itself, we come to the conclusion that by the time we are done with the conditional statement, there's only one conditional statement in this case, this condition has to be true. Okay? Are we okay with that? Okay, that's just because of the structure of the code, nothing else. And also the precondition. On the other hand, we define x being the maximum, excuse me, we define z being the maximum of x and y. It's really saying this thing here. Z is greater than or equal to x, and z is greater than or equal to y, and z has to be the same as at least one of the two variables that was given to me. That's how we define, it's the maximum of the two. Is that okay? Okay, so one is a definition, the other one is the result of deriving the logic based on the structure of the code that was given to me. So now the question is, does this post condition imply the fact that z is the maximum of the two variables? That is the question. Because if I can establish that link, that the post 5 implies what is highlighted here, then I'm all set. I have just proven the algorithm is correct with no assumptions whatsoever about the initial values of x, y, and z.
Yes.
That would be great, right? On the other hand, if I cannot make that connection, that means something is amiss. Okay? The algorithm is not doing what it is supposed to.
False.
Well, it's not false. It's just not, finding the maximum of x and y all the time. Okay. So now we want to make that, connection. I sent you guys an email with a document that kind of explains this. it is partially correct. Okay, I forgot about one little thing, and I'll address that later in this class. So okay, so now we have this expression here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and look at this expression, and then try to figure out what to do about it. Now you don't have to do the algebra, the Boolean algebra that I'm doing here, but I'm going to do it because it is something that I want to expose you to. Just the way of thinking. I want to expose you to the way of thinking about stuff like this. So by the time you actually take a class in Boolean algebra, this stuff would not be foreign at all at that point. Okay. So the first thing I would do is to rearrange the whole thing. Now this symbol means equivalent to, okay? And I'll talk about what equivalent to. It's kind of like equal to, but it's not exactly the same, okay? So equivalent to is kind of like saying that expression is the same as this expression, but it's not exactly equal to. I will get to that part, okay? I'll just do this part here. Okay. Would that be okay? Is that intuitive? If I just add one extra pair of parentheses around the first conjunction, would that change the meaning of conjunction in general? It's just kind of like, if I use multiplication, x times y times z, if I put the parentheses around x times y, does that change the result from putting the parentheses around y times z? No. No, it doesn't change the meaning. And which rule of algebra is that? I mean, what is the name of that rule in algebra? Is the associative, exactly. And it applies in Boolean algebra as well. Okay, so that works just as well in algebra. So we have just rearranged things a little bit here. The next step is to use the distributive rule here. So I would come up with two huge conjunctions. One conjunction, this is something that I can do easily because I have an editor here. So I can just copy and paste. And then, this part here is going to be copied over here. And then this part here is pasted over here. Okay, so that's really just the distributive rule in algebra. Okay, if you look at multiplication as conjunction and addition as disjunction, it works out pretty much the same way. Okay, a times in parentheses b plus c is ab plus ac. It's basically what I've just done here. All right. Are we doing okay so far with the manipulation, the algebra of the expressions? Okay. Now remember, once again, this is not a Boolean algebra class, so I'm not expecting you guys to do it, but I do want to expose you to your thinking in these terms. So every step is established by a particular rule or theorem. So I'm not jumping steps. I'm not saying, oh, intuitively it seems to make sense. No, these are actual facts that I can make these transformations. Okay, and this is where I will stop in this with this derivation. Then I will start with the other expression here and say, what can I do with this? Well, let's see here. In this case, I'm going to use equal followed by a greater than sign, which is implies. Okay, one thing implies the other, and I'll explain the differences between implies, implied by, and equivalent to, because they're all kind of the same thing, but not really the same thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at just the left-hand side, which is this part here. Okay, let's see if we can say something like this. Okay, I'm just going to do really, really simple steps here. Just do one little thing at a time, and you tell me whether it makes sense or not. Okay. Does x is greater than y imply x is greater than or equal to y? Okay, let me.
Z equals x and z equals y.
Okay, x is greater than y. Does that imply x is greater than or equal to y?
No.
Okay, I can tell that I need that little digression right now. Okay, so let's take a look at these three things, okay? One thing is called implies. The other thing is called implied by. And the last thing is equivalent to. Okay. So we'll take a look at these three things and say, but why is it important in computer programming? I mean, we don't need to learn this stuff. Well, actually we do. Okay, we'll go ahead and, so instead of looking at this from the math angle, which is kind of boring, we'll do it in my traditional way, which is to say something that is outrageously insane, which doesn't take me much effort. Okay, so this is what I'm saying here. Okay, TAC claims the following. If the sky is purple, then everyone is a straight A student. Okay, that's my statement. That's my claim. All right. Well, it's a statement, which means, okay, let's think about what is a statement. Okay, so let's even look at that term here. What is a statement? A statement means you pay me $10 and you say, TAC, tell me a truth of some kind. Okay, so I'm telling you something like this. Okay, if the sky is purple, then everyone is a straight A student. What? Let me say that again. The sky is purple implies everyone is a straight A student. What? Let me say that one more time. The sky is purple is a sufficient condition for everyone to be a straight A student. Those three ways of saying it are equivalent. They're really saying the same thing. Okay. All right. So you pay me $10. I told you this, and then I say, if you can prove me wrong, I will give you the $10. I'll give you $12 back. Okay, because I'll give you back your $10 and then plus your $2 more because you can prove me wrong. Okay. In other words, now we want to say, under what situation is this statement considered true, and under what situation is this statement considered false, so you can get your refund. Okay? There are 4 different scenarios that can happen, right? Because we can have the sky being true, the sky being purple is true, and everyone getting straight, everyone being straight A students is true as well. Okay, so you can have true and true. You can have the first condition being true, the sky is purple, and somehow you're not getting a straight A. You're not a straight A student. Your GPA is 3.97. We can have the opposite. We can have the sky not being purple, like today is blue, and everybody is a straight A student. We are all happy. And we can have the last situation where the sky is blue, like today, and not everybody is a straight A student. Somebody that has a GPA of 3.99. Okay, not straight A. Okay, so now the question is, under which situation can you come back to me and say, TAC, what you said was false, I want my money back? Okay, well, let's take a look at this one here, and then we'll say, we'll look at each and every single one. Okay, and then here on this column we say, refund. Okay. All right. In the first situation, you walk outside. The sky is purple. It's kind of strange. And then you read the newspaper, and it says everybody's a straight A student. You check your own transcript. I'm a straight A student. You check the transcript of all your friends. They're all straight A students. Can you get a refund back?
No.
Absolutely not, because that's exactly what I told you, right? All right. Fine. So no, not getting a refund back. Okay. The second situation is you walk outside, the sky is in fact purple, you check your own transcript and go like, then how come my GPA is only 3.99? Can you get your refund back?
Yes.
Yeah, because that says, no, what I said was not true. I said that if the sky is purple, then you will become a straight A, so will everybody else. Okay, you get your refund back, plus something. Okay, you get your $12 back. Now, what is interesting is the last 2 cases. Okay, the sky is blue, like today, and everybody's a straight A student. Does that conflict with my statement? No, not at all. It does not conflict with my statement. You cannot get your refund.
Why?
Hmm?
Could be a straight A student for other reasons.
Because what I said was the sky
You gave
being
one
purple.
condition of the color of the sky.
Sorry?
Because you gave one condition of the color of the sky.
Because what I said was, okay, remember the three ways of saying the same thing? One is this way here, okay? If the sky is purple, then everyone is a straight A student. It's one way to say it. The second way to say it is to say the sky is purple implies everyone is a straight A student. The third way to say it is to say the sky is purple is a sufficient condition for everyone being a straight A student, okay? But what if the sky is not purple?
It's not a sufficient condition.
I didn't say anything about what if the sky is not purple. Okay, so that means regardless of what happens when the sky is not purple, you cannot get your refund back because you cannot prove me wrong. Because I didn't say anything about what happens when the sky is not purple. Is that okay? Go ahead.
Which truth table does this follow?
Sorry?
Which truth table does this follow?
This is its own truth table. Implies has its own truth table. Implies, which is usually represented as this symbol here. That's why I use an equal symbol with a greater than symbol. This is its own logical operator. And its own logical operator is like this, okay? So if we don't look at refund and look at the truthfulness of the statement, then this is true. This is the only time it is false. We have true and true. Okay, let me readjust the font size so that it shows the entire thing. I think that will do it. Here we go. Okay, it's its own operator. It can be implemented using the operators that we already know. We can talk about that if you want to. But this is how we define implies. Okay? So implies means if the first thing is true, the second thing has to be true. But if the first thing is not true, the second thing doesn't have to be true, doesn't have to be false. We don't care. Okay? Is that okay? Okay. The second thing is implied by, or only if in English. So the second statement that I will make is, in fact, I'll just copy the entire truth table and then we'll just modify that. Okay. So the second statement is really tricky because all I'm doing is to add the word only. But that actually changes the meaning of the entire thing. So if I say only if the sky is purple, then everyone is a straight A student, let's see whether you can get your refund back or whether my statement is true or not. Okay? So if you walk outside, the sky is purple, everybody is a straight A student. Is that consistent with this statement? Only if the sky is purple, then everybody is a straight A student.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so the statement itself is true. You cannot get your refund. Okay, what about the second one? Remember we got a refund out of this situation last time? What about this time? I say, only if the sky is purple, then everyone is a straight A student. Walk outside, the sky is not purple, excuse me, the sky is purple, but not everybody is a straight A student. Can you get your refund?
Yeah.
The answer is no. You cannot get your refund because the statement is still true. What? Okay, well, let's take a look at the other two ways of saying exactly the same thing. Okay, so I would say the first time using exactly the statement here, only if the sky is purple, then everyone is a straight A student. That's the one way of saying it. The second one is if the sky is purple, is implied by everyone is a straight A student. The third way is to say the sky is purple is a necessary condition for everyone to be a straight A student. These three statements are exactly the same, it's just saying it in a slightly different way. Okay, pick the last one, okay? The last one is saying the sky is purple is a necessary condition for everyone to be a straight A student.
There has to be purple for everyone to be a straight A student, but everyone does not have to be a straight A. Yeah, okay, never mind. Sorry, that finally made sense.
It's the necessary condition
Yeah.
thing, okay? Necessary means it may not be the only one.
Exactly.
It has to be one of the reasons, but it may not be the only reason for everybody to be a straight A student. The other reason may be everybody has to be hardworking, right? So that's why when the sky is purple, but not everybody is a straight A student, is still consistent with the statement, because the statement is only saying that the sky being purple is a necessary condition. It doesn't mean it is a sufficient condition. Yep.
Well, doesn't the only if make the statement apply conditional statement, meaning that you can switch the ordering?
No, it applies, it means it is actually the reverse. It is really saying the same thing as if everyone is a straight A student, then the sky is purple. That's really what it's saying. That's the fourth way of saying the same thing. Okay, when you use the word of the phrase only if, it's really switching around which one is necessary and which one is sufficient. Okay?
That's good.
Now let's take a look at this one here. Okay, we couldn't get a refund back in the previous case. In this case, can we get a refund back? You walk outside, the sky is blue, okay? So the sky is purple is false, okay? But you know what? Everybody's getting straight A's. Is that consistent with my statement? In other words, if the sky is blue and everybody becomes a straight A student, is it consistent with the statement that the sky being purple is a necessary condition for everyone to be a straight A student?
No, that doesn't meet the condition.
Exactly. So you can get a refund back in this particular situation. And the last one is still true because the sky is blue and not everybody is a straight A student. That's okay, because I'm saying that the sky is purple is a necessary condition for everybody to be a straight A student. Missing a necessary condition means the other condition is going to be false. Because it's a necessary condition, you're missing it, then it's okay for not everybody is getting a straight A. Okay, are we still doing okay so far with implied by or only if? They're really saying the same thing. Okay, and can anyone guess the symbol of this particular logical operator?
Well, it's probably.
It's like this one, except the arrow points the other way.
Yeah.
Because it's implied by. Okay, going forward is implies, going backwards is implied by. Now, let's look at the next one. The next one is if and only if. Oof. Okay. Has anyone taken like a philosophy class in critical thinking, logic, stuff like that? Do they talk about this? Yep. Do they use this kind of crazy example? They do? Disappointed. I'm disappointed. I was hoping that they would use boring truth tables and only that.
There you go. We do both.
Do both. Yep. Okay, so the last one is if and only if. Okay, if and only if the sky is purple, then everyone will become a straight A student. All right, so this one is kind of interesting. So I'm gonna take these guys out, change the spacing, so it's now over here. Okay. All right. Would that be okay? If and only if the sky is purple, then everyone is a straight A student. You walk outside, the sky is purple, and everybody is a straight A student. Would that be consistent with my statement? Yes. Okay, that's good. Okay, so that truthfulness is established. And we'll skip the middle two and skip to the last one. Okay, you walk outside, the sky is blue, and then you check the grades of everybody, and not everybody is a straight A student. Would that be consistent with the statement?
Yes.
It would be, because the statement is saying if and only if the sky is purple, then everybody is a straight A student. You walk outside, the sky is not purple, and not everybody is a straight A student.
So
it's actually consistent.
Okay.
It's actually consistent. Okay. The other two requires a slightly different way of looking at the statement. So let's look at the other two ways of reading the same statement. Okay. The first way is just the way it is written here. If and only if the sky is purple, then everybody is a straight A student. That's the first way. The second way is to say the sky being purple is implying, but it's also implied by everybody is a straight A student. The third way, which is the more common way of saying something like this, is the sky being purple is both a necessary and a sufficient condition for everybody to be a straight A student. It's both necessary and sufficient. Okay? So using the third interpretation, okay, if the sky is purple, you walk outside, the sky is in fact purple, and not everybody is a straight A student. Can you get your refund back? Because my statement is false. Yes, you can. Because if it is a sufficient condition, then everybody should be straight A student when the sky is purple. So the fact that somebody is not a straight A student means, you know, what I said was not true. Okay, the last one, or the third one here, is saying the sky is blue and everybody is a straight A student. It's good news, but guess what? It gets even better because you can get your $12. Because what I said is false. Why is it false? Because I said it is both necessary and sufficient. So if you can find the sky being blue and yet everybody is getting straight A's, you know, in their as their GPA, that means it's no longer necessary. It's conflicting with the necessary part. So that's why you're getting your refund back also in this case. Yep, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I think the easy way of saying it then would be if everyone's a straight A student, the sky's purple. And that's it.
Say again?
If everybody's a straight A student, then the sky has to be purple.
That's one component of it. Okay, if you want to use it that way, then you can say if and only if the sky is purple, then everyone is a straight A student. It's really saying the following. It's actually combining the first two. Yeah. It's saying if the sky is purple, then everybody is a straight A student, and only if the sky is purple, then everyone is a straight A student. It's actually combining the first two with a conjunction. Okay? All right. Now, what does this have to do with computer science or programming or logic? Do we really have to understand this stuff here?
Yes.
Probably.
Well, it depends on whether you want to keep your job, right? Okay, so now we want to go back to what we just said a little bit earlier. Okay, so let me just kind of add something to this. You know, this is represented by the symbol, which is a right arrow, but using two lines. This is using the other symbol, which is a left arrow using two lines. And this one is using a double-sided arrow and using two lines. Okay, in other words, we are looking at a symbol that looks like this. Okay, if and only if is that. Okay, and for those of you who don't like to type if and only if, it's also known as IIF. Is it IIF or IFF? IFF. Okay, so it's a short form of if and only if. Okay. Now, what does that mean when we are dealing with programming and, you know, all the proofs that we are trying to do here? Do you see how I use, you know, this double-sided arrow here? That means one specific thing. It means that if this condition is true, this condition has to be true as well. And it goes the other way around. If this condition is true, this condition also has to be true. But even more, it's saying if this condition is false, this condition also has to be false. When this condition is false, that condition also has to be false. That is what I mean when I say it is equivalent. Okay? You can truly substitute one with the other one all the time because they actually say exactly the same thing. When one is true, the other one is true. When one is false, the other one also has to be false. They are truly equivalent. Are we doing okay so far? Okay. What about this part here? How come, you know, I use only one side of the arrow but not the other side? Like this one here. This is implies, right? What it is saying is when this condition is true, this condition has to be true because it implies, or it is also saying this condition is sufficient, is a sufficient condition for this condition. Okay, you can only go one way, unfortunately, in this case, because when this condition, the one that is highlighted, is true, it does not mean that this one has to be true. It doesn't go backwards. Okay, are we doing okay so far? That's the most important part. Is now it is going in only one direction. You cannot walk backwards anymore. Okay, but that's okay in this case because all I really care is going in one direction. That's all I need in this case. Okay. Because eventually what I really want is I want this condition here to look like this. Okay? So I'm trying to establish that this is when this is true, the other one has to be true too. Okay. So let's take a look at this one again. Can I add something crazy like this? The rest would still be the same, so I'm just gonna highlight the part that we want to focus. Okay, so the question is this implying that? The only thing I'm adding here is z is greater than or equal to x. Yeah, we can certainly claim that. I mean, if I know that z is the same as x, I can certainly say that if z equals x is true, z is greater than or equal to x also has to be true. But it doesn't go the other way around. If z is greater than or equal to x is true, it does not automatically say that z equals to x, right? So it only goes in one direction. Okay, I know we're running out of time, so I do want to just kind of finish this up here. If you read the document that I sent you, it actually has the same content. But eventually we can establish the same thing here. See how this is now exactly the same as this part here? I can now do the same thing, basically essentially the same thing on the other side. So I can establish this part here. Now, the only bottom line here before you leave, the only part you have to take with you is the post condition of line 5 implies that z is the maximum of x and y. Is that a good thing or not?
Yes.
It's a good thing because that means when we are done with the algorithm, we are now guaranteed that z is the maximum of x and y. The completion of the algorithm implies z is the maximum of x and y. That's a good thing. Do we still have to throw test cases at this thing? Now that we have this? Not anymore, because now I know it works for all values of x and y. I know there are no red dots within the green circle anymore. Okay? So just keep the big picture in mind as you go through the mechanical stuff, because the mechanical stuff is kind of distracting sometimes. Remember, there's no class on Thursday, so don't come here. Nobody will be here.
That's what we're gonna do on our